Good evening, everybody. How are you? This is Enrique, the director and founder of Spanish United. Tonight on our show, I have Ken Wu. Ken, would you please be kind enough to introduce yourself to the audience?
Hi, everybody, and thank you, Enrique, for inviting me to your podcast show. It's an honor to be here. And I'm a Taiwanese American community activist, and also I would like to call myself a lifetime volunteer for my own community. Taiwanese American, we have the largest population and sort of like among Asian Americans in San Gabriel Valley area in SoCal. So I often kind of like just hang out here in what we call the Little Taipei area, the San Gabriel Valley area. And what we do is what I do is actually be part of different Taiwanese American organizations. What we do is we service our community and making sure that their needs are met. And also if there are questions, if they're new immigrants, if they're long time immigrant doesn't matter. We have different kind of activities making sure that they're still in touch with the roots in Taiwan. So that's pretty much what we do. We deal with a lot of people, mostly members of our community, and also sometimes who members outside of our community, friends of outside of our community who are interested in Taiwan. We also service them as well. So hopefully people can kind of Google about Taiwanese American, Google Ken Wu, and maybe you'll be able to see more information about us. Thank you.
谢谢. Appreciate it. That's a little bit of my Chinese that I know.
And you sound just like us.
Oh, really? Wow. I have the tonal pronunciation probably. Excellent. So tonight's topic, like I said in before we got on the air, is going to be about Asian Hispanic relations, Hispanophobia, and promoting dialogue and exchange. So the first topic is going to be on Asian and Hispanic relations. As you know, Hispanics and Asians are two of the fastest growing groups in America, and they have predicted that within the next 20, 30 years, those are going to be the two minorities that are like going to dominate, like particularly like in the West Coast. And from what I see is that even though both groups are growing, I don't see that the Hispanic community is growing economically at the same rate as the Asian community. And I wanted to get your feedback on how do you feel that this might create tensions, or do you think there could be an opportunity to engage with each other with the Hispanic community and to make it improve? What's your what's your take?
Well, actually, it's interesting that you're saying economically that Hispanic seems to be not on the same pace as the Asian Americans, because to the Asian Americans, actually, well, I can't speak for all Asians, but probably mostly the Taiwanese Americans. As we know, Asian Americans are very diverse. There are different type of Asian American now. There's Chinese, Korean, Taiwanese, Japanese, and etc. But according to the latest stats that we can see, Taiwanese American are actually on probably the top tier when it comes to economic status among the Asian Americans. So I can sort of speak for that. Actually, too many Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans have done so well in the area of political influence. There's a lot of Hispanic Americans in the political realm and also in different type of industries as well, say entertainment, or it could be like just also traditional industries and also the new tech as well. So in a way, the Asian Americans feel that even though they may look economically more, probably better in one sense, but on the other end, when it comes to politics, when it comes to political power, when it comes to political influence, which is something that can really have long-term impact on the overall development of the entire ethnic groups or community, Hispanic actually has an upper hand. So in my opinion, I feel that in the future for both Asian Americans and Hispanic Americans to do well in the United States, the probably mutual friendship, probably mutual beneficial relationship is definitely needed. when we can start out with more mutual understanding of each other, there could be a lot more collaboration opportunities. There could be a lot more um, chances for both sides to really start crossing out all the stereotypes each side has against each other, because honestly both sides may have different kind of perception or misperception, if you will, of each
Mhm.
other. So I think that's something that we can work on, especially as young generation, where we really don't have the baggage of our elder generations, and we really have a lot more hope. We really have more aspiration to do better, as collectively as Americans in the future. So that's something I would probably suggest. More dialogue, more joint organized event. Like, I just want to especially thank Enrique for being part of our Taiwan FAPA, for Muslim Association for Public Affairs, which is an organization I'm part of, and I was the chapter president last year. That we have this annual anti genocide and or government atrocity prevention seminar that we do every year. And Enrique done a fantastic job in presenting the situation in Puerto Rico in our largely Asian American participated online events. And in fact, there's a lot of people who told me afterwards that they learned so much. They actually learned so much about Puerto Rican, they learned so much about Hispanic American situations after the presentation. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's exactly the kind of activities we need to have to sort of bring both sides closer together.
I agree with you. And again, I wanted to thank you for inviting me. It really meant a lot. It was kind of interesting how we met, because I had contact with the Taipei Economic Exchange Office like last year. And I think it was
Mhm.
you or somebody that saw my email, but then didn't read it until later. And then it got me in contact with you. And then you were the one that invited me for the panel, which was something that was a big honor for me. And I truly appreciate it. I was able to learn a lot, especially about the Rohingya people, which I didn't even know that Myanmar had a Muslim minority, because it's a predominantly Buddhist
Buddhist,
country. So
exactly.
that's something that I learned, and also the whole situation with Hong Kong, with Taiwan,
Mhm.
also with the Uyghurs. It's very good and very important to encourage dialogue with all people, because I think it also promotes an exchange and dialogue, and at the same time it helps people to work together and have a common cause, and I think
Exactly.
having more of these panels discussions, I think if the Asian community were to engage more with the Hispanic community and invite like civil leaders and civic leaders, I think that's going to create mutual understanding. At the same time, both groups can learn from each other, and I think it'll be beneficial to both sides.
Absolutely.
And another thing I want to talk about is about Hispano Hispanophobia. As you know, with the wake of a lot of racist attacks against African Americans, LGBT, Jews, and now with the Asian community, I kind of feel that the Hispanic community has been left out when it
Mhm.
comes to protections. One of the reasons why I started Spanish United, because I'm trying to lobby to get laws enacted so that way Hispanics are included as a protected minority, because Hispanics in general are not considered a race, they're more considered an ethnicity. Hispanics could be of any race, they could be white, black, Asian, Native American, mixed, or a mixture of all those four. So it's kind of difficult to characterize Hispanics as a group, but I think it's very important, because I feel that Hispanics are like a silent majority in the country, both legal and illegal. And I also wanted to discuss the issue of this might be a little bit controversial, but there is some form of Hispanophobia within the Asian community, and I wanted to ask,
Mhm.
does it stem like from previous experiences in the past with, let's say, for example, with the Korean Americans, or is it just stereotype and stigma in general that the
I,
stigma that Asians are more successful economically than Hispanics, and that's why there's like a friction.
Well, I think that Asian Americans don't really feel that they are economically more superior than others, especially the ones that just got here. I mean, we had to understand that there are different types of Asian Americans, even among Asian Americans, right? Like
Mm,
there are people who just got here and they actually have absolutely no language skills, or they don't really understand about how America works. I would say that because actually my mother was actually one of she is one of those people. I would say when she
mm,
first got here, she didn't really understand the word of English. Even though in Taiwan she was a professional nurse, but when she got here, basically she had to kind of start from the scratch and then start learning about the language and learning about how the American system works. So for her, she obviously wouldn't be able to get the kind of pay that normal, American-born Asian American would get. Even even if she has better education, she may have better professional degrees, professional experiences, but just because the fact that she is a new immigrant, she doesn't really know anything about how to be successful in the United States. It will be really hard for her. But for other Asian Americans who were born here and maybe were endowed with economic, I would say, economic privileges they got from previous generations, or maybe even their own hard work, perhaps they would feel that way. But um, back to what we're saying about the migrants, we had to look at another stats is that Asian Americans, they are often the victims of various crimes against them in the United States. We could talk about different ethnic groups may have that same problem, like they're all victims of crimes, obviously. But if you look at blacks or Hispanics or other races or whites, we often see that most of the time the instigator, the aggressors are people of their own race. But when
mhm,
it comes to Asian American, when we look at the crime stats, it's often people from other races.
mhm.
Uh, and that's actually a very, very interesting data, because that actually contributed to the fact that Asian Americans feel they're often the victim in this entire country. They never really feel that they have a chance to become strong. So in that sense, the only way they really can be successful, or they think they're successful, is to pick those opportunities or pick those job opportunities that really can give them the economic gain. So basically, to them, since they often feel they're victimized, and all other races are against them, therefore they feel that they're always the victim, if you will.
Mhm.
So when it comes to blacks, obviously they will feel that, hey, a black man comes to the convenience store that they own, or comes into a business of the business facility that they have, they maybe have something ulterior in mind. And when it comes to Hispanic, when it comes to Latino, they come to their shop, same thing. So it's not really a perception that like a racist kind of thing. It's just
Mhm.
really stats wise, they're often being hurt by criminals of other races. Sure, they understand that not everybody in Black community or Hispanic community are bad guys, but it just the stats shows that way, and then that's how they feel, that's how they experience. And we had to look at another interesting fact is that most Asian Americans don't feel confident in the system that's currently in place. When they call the cops to come and then report the crimes, who usually show up? Not really Asian American police officers. It's usually other races.
Right, of
So
course.
yeah, so when they report, they feel that, hey, I tell you something that happened to me, but it's probably just go into some big mountain of files somewhere and will never get done. It will never get resolved.
Mm.
So that also contributed to underreporting of Asian American crimes against Asian Americans as well. So with all that being said, that's pretty much the reason why they feel defensive, not necessarily negative towards other races, but they just feel very defensive. Um, Even among Asian Americans, I mean, like Asian American criminals, they well, there's not real stats wise, there's not really a lot of Asian American criminals out there, if we compare it with population, but
Mm.
still they will also prey upon Asian Americans as well. And
Right,
if you
right.
look at the stats of other races, how many Asian American criminals prey upon Black, Hispanic, it's often like in the decimals. So that's
Like,
pretty much what.
yeah, yeah, like less than 0.1%.
Yeah, So that's kind of like how Asian Americans feel, that they feel that, hey, we pay taxes just like everybody else, maybe more than a lot of people, and we follow the law, and then we don't hurt other people, but we are getting hurt, and we are, there's nobody in the Congress, there's nobody in the assemblies are, there to talk for us. They just want to follow the mainstream. The mainstream is non-Asian. The mainstream is not, being very ethnic centric. So to them, they feel like they're all alone. That's pretty much what I would say. Like, so they focus all their energy, they focus all their efforts in getting rich, or getting, probably
Right,
getting more affluence, if you will, so they can
right,
hire security, they can hire confidence, they can use the
right.
money to get all those things that they couldn't have if they don't have the money.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've noticed is that the Asian community in general, doesn't matter what they are, they're more focused on economics than they are in politics. And even
Hmm.
though people may assume that Asians might go like either way when it comes
Hmm.
to politics, in general, from what you say, they tend to be neutral because, like you were saying, they are more focused on being economically stable. While
Right.
Hispanics, they're more focused on having civil rights protections and that type of thing. So they don't really focus that much on economics. But
Hmm.
I do believe that if Asians have more representation in government, I think that would help them not only have a voice, but at the same time they could also voice their concerns with other representatives of the Hispanic community. I think that was something that
Right.
would be beneficial to both groups.
Yes.
And also the final question is, as far as promoting dialogue and exchange, like what do you feel or believe that can be done between both the Hispanic and the Asian communities for them to engage and at the same time have a better relationship with each other, so that way to minimize conflict and distrust?
Well, I think first thing we need to do is really to for people who really want to do this, or committed to better the relations between Asian Americans and Hispanic Americans, to start forming some sort of study group, or some sort of sort of forum, to go over the common grounds, go over the issues, the public affairs that both sides would agree that are important to them respectively. So start from the common grounds, and then be courageous about listing all the things that they might disagree with each other as well. We know, like, something like Prop 16 is last year was something that's totally kind of like polar opposites on both sides, where we see a lot of Taiwanese Chinese Americans who are against Prop 16, and then we see a lot more people in the Hispanic community are for it. So that's something that both sides need to kind of be honest, and then also be confident about presenting as well. Hey, these are the things that we don't agree on. We can either drop it, or we can see if there's any way we can work together to form a more of a bipartisan, or more of a by community agreement on how we want to go about doing this. So I think that would probably be the first step to get a couple leaders, or not really opinion leaders, or strong advocates on both sides, to want to start on that. And second thing is probably to not just do it once, not just do one big event where we invite a lot of people from both sides, and then we don't do it next year. It
Mhm.
has to continue. It doesn't really matter how um, we're going to face challenges, we're going to face obstacles, we're going to
Mhm.
face people who disagree with what we're doing. But as long as we do it every year, as long as we do it no matter what happens, then it's going to be a culture, it's going to be a custom that both sides respect, and both sides feel that, hey, they've been doing this for a while and they have the cred. So next time, if this forum has come to a consensus on certain things, all sides will listen.
Mhm.
And especially people who we elected into office, they will take this forum seriously,
Mhm.
their opinion seriously. So I feel that's something that we definitely need to work on, is to get the right people, and then make a right occasion and definitely talk about the topics that I just mentioned, and do this every single time. So that way we have an updated consensus every single time that we meet, every single time that we discuss, and definitely keep it civil, keep it bipartisan, keep it in a way that's inclusive and
Mhm.
open. So that way we can allow more opinions, better ideas, and also better chemistry to work in the future.
I agree. And I also wanted to add that I think another way to also promote dialogue and exchange is also through economics. Like you were mentioning the Taiwanese and particularly the, basically like the East Asian community, like, Chinese, Taiwanese, Koreans,
Mhm.
Japanese,
Yes.
since they hold a lot of economic wealth, I think a way to increase dialogue is that I would like to see them invest in the Hispanic communities, transform those communities, also train people to be civic leaders in the Hispanic community, so that way they could raise the standard of living in par with their Asian neighbors. Like for example, you have Monterey Park, which is next to East LA. If you were to get
Mhm.
like Taiwanese or Chinese civil leaders and take them to East LA, and then you invite like Chicano and Mexican civil leaders from this Mexican community, so that way they could study economic principles that made, for example, Monterey Park wealthy. I think that could transform the community and bring it into the same level. I think that is something that will be very good because I think investment is also very important, not just cultural and dialect exchange, but I think you know doing exchange through economics by investing and bringing employment, creating community centers, cultural centers. I think that would be beneficial to both groups, and I think that's something that I believe if the Asian community were to start doing that here in the San Gabriel Valley area, in areas that are still Hispanic, I think that would be a very excellent idea to create a better understanding with the Asian community, like saying, "Hey, look, the Asians want us to be, you know, successful as they are," and I think it will create the Hispanic community to be, you know what, these people are wanting to help us learn from them and see what they've done to be successful. So that will create a common cause, and I think that's something that is very very important, in my honest opinion.
Yeah, I think that the Asian Americans in general, especially their business, they've been long time in their own ways investing in Hispanic community in terms of providing employment opportunities and also providing financings in various areas such as housing and etc. But definitely there are more opportunities out there that could be shared by both sides, and I mean it's one plus one is definitely greater than two when it comes to mutual beneficial relations and joint ventures. So I would definitely want to see a lot. As I said, Asian Americans view Hispanic Americans as politically more strong, and we can't really get things done without the political influences and the political maneuvers, that can more efficiently, better the all the kind of aspirations both sides may have. So in the future, like, and I would definitely say that if both sides can work together, we can create as I said, agreement on what are the projects. It could be investments, it could be business ventures could be that can improve both sides, the prosperity. Sorry, it could further the prosperity for both ends. So that way, in the future, I would definitely be able to see more Asian and Hispanic American partnered ventures in
Yes,
America.
I agree with you. Is there any final thoughts or comments you'd like to give?
Yeah, I just want to let people know that it's really important to reach out. Honestly, if Enrique did not reach out, then he probably wouldn't even be able to know like pretty much what Taiwan Center, what a lot of the foundation can do. And I mean, he already knows the center, and also he's been to Taiwan before, but
Mhm.
not a lot of Hispanic Americans may have the same experience. And so I would like to say, don't worry about, the other sides might reject you. We always get rejections because people always reject things they don't understand, they don't know. But continue to reach out, continue to be courageous, continue to be confident and passionate about what you think is right. So that way, as more people start reaching out to each other, then we will eventually, form a lot more handshakes, and that will create a lot more opportunities to be successful mutually in the future.
I agree with you. I wanted to thank you very much for being on the show. I truly appreciate it. As soon as I get off the air, I will definitely send you the link and inbox it to you on Facebook.
Okay, great, thank you.
Have yourself a wonderful day. 谢谢，谢谢。
Okay, thank you.
Bye bye.